So we look at an example for the one-to-many mapping. So we'll just create a new class here. Answer. We'll just create a new class with the name answer. Okay. So as we're using annotation, it should be named as annotated with the entity. As we are using annotations, right? This should be named as annotated with the entity. So we're defining some properties. We're defining the properties for this class. Okay. So every answer, a user, if he answers now, he'll be having given an ID, then answer name and posted by. Okay. So those are answers in that forum, right? They'll be having an ID, answer name and posted by. This reference will be there. Yeah. So then I'll just generate a getters and setters. Then I'll generate a getters and setters. Okay, fine. So next, yeah, this I'll just try to change to table. I'll just let you know why we're using table. Next, we'll create one more class question. We'll create one more class question. We'll create one more class question. So this also will just add the annotation entity. We'll create one more class called as question. Okay, this should be also given ID. This is important. Okay, this is the primary key field, right? So this should be of type ID. Under the ID, then generated value. So next, go to question here. I get one more class. Same, we are given entity, ID, all those things we need to import. So we have a ID and the question name. We have an ID and the question. Now, if you see here, in one-to-many, if the persistent class has a list object, okay, that contains entity reference, then we need to use one-to-many association. If it has a list object that contains entity reference, so it means I'm just trying to create a list of type answer. Okay, answers. So just understand what is it. So we are now list type. So this is a list of entity reference. So what is it, people? It's an object of, it's a list of type another class. So it will store what? Answer objects. Okay. So for this question, there will be many answers. If single person answers, then what would I have given? What I given? String answer. So many persons will be answering your question. So that's why they create a list. So this is what called as, when you have this, then we have to use what? One to many relationship. Okay. Reason for using one to many mapping. Why? Because we have an entity reference. So entity reference means what? Object of another class as a of type list. So now you can just look here. I'll be using this annotation. These are the main annotations which will be used. One to many, all from the persistent. Okay. Then join column annotation. Then the order column annotation. All from Java X dot persistence. One to many, join column, order column. So next we are generating the getters and setters. Source generate getters and sets. So these are the new annotations we are using here for one to many mapping. Fine. The next we'll be creating the, yeah, go to the JSP file should be created, is it not? One to many. So I'll just add the import stuff. So we have question and we have answer. So these two fields. And next observe here in the configuration file, you need to add this mapping class. Okay. So this is for annotation configuration. Of course, this will change. This will change. So just look here. In the annotation configuration, we'll be using this. Is it not the mapping class? Instead of mapping resource, we'll be using the class. So no mapping file. Everything is specified with the help of what? Yes. The annotations. So that's the difference. So in case of one to many. Yes. So just look here. Same code. We're creating an answer object first. We're just creating a answer object. Okay. So Hibernate is a persistent framework answered by this guy. So another person, Priyanka, tells that Hibernate is a ORM tool. Next question is, what is Angular? Answer is, Angular is a JavaScript framework by Mayank, like this. It is used to create single page applications. So we're creating an array list. We're creating an array list and we're adding the answers. The two objects we created now, answer 1 and answer 2, this array list. Okay. Again, list 1 and list 2. Angular's answer is answer 3 and answer 4. So now we are creating a question object. So what is Hibernate? I'm setting the list. What is Angular? I'm setting the list too. Means this will have what? Multiple answers. And we're just trying to persist it. Okay. So just look here, people. Now, how we are configuring the session factory is different. Okay. So actually, how do you configure session factory? Using the configuration object. But from Hibernate 5, this is a way of creating session factory using standard service registry builder. But that is a normal, the old prior to Hibernate 5, people are using configuration object to create a session factory. But Hibernate 5 onwards, we can also use standard service registry builder to configure the session factory object. So that is why here we are using persist. We can also use save, but it will just say deprecated. It will just say deprecated. It will work, but it will be deprecated. So this is instead of that, we are saving it as persist. Equivalent to session.save or session.persist. Okay. And we are committing and we just see that. So how many tables will be created here? How many tables will be created? Two tables, right? One is for question and there is for answers. So just listen here. One more thing. Like when you work with this identity, right? I mean to say that ID field. So if it occurs an error, okay. So in my case, it was giving an error telling that that ID field cannot be generated, but the table will be created because of Hibernate. The table will be automatically created, but there is a problem with an ID field. So next time when you run, it will just say there is no default value. So you need to drop the table and run it again. So what is identity? It will look for the previous value and it will just give the next value, right? 1, 2, 3 like that. So when you execute for the first time, if the error occurs, the table will be created. The table will created. Once the table is created, next you are entering what? The values for the field, for the table. The table is created, but value while entering the values, right? It got a we got an error. So I'll drop the table and again run it because it is not finding the value for the auto generation. It will not finding the value for the auto generation. So I just dropped the two tables. You can just look here. I'll just try to refresh session. Yeah, everyone have worked yesterday, specifically girls. Why are not coming to the lab? Why no girls are coming to the lab? Are you working? Hmm? Have executed yesterday, everyone. Hibernate web application. Have you worked? Okay, deleted customer. Yes, just look here. Problem with the database. So one to many demo success. Okay, tables will be created. We'll just check the output. So I give a different table name. That's why it is working. So just look at question. So what is Hibernate and what is Angular? So we have a question table. What is Hibernate and what is Angular? Okay. And we have answers for that. ID. So answer name. Answer. Hibernate is a persistent framework from this guy. For the question ID, 1. For the question ID, 1. Okay. Next. Hibernate is a ORM tool by Priyanka. For the question ID, 1. So what is this, people? It's a foreign key. You know the concept of primary key and foreign key, na? So primary key and foreign key concept is created here. Okay. So this points to the question field of the primary key of the question table. Similarly, Angular is a JS framework. Mayank, question ID 2. So Angular is used to create single page application. Raj, question ID is 2. Okay. So we have created two tables. So one will be having question, another will be having answers. One will be having question, another will be having answers. So just make a note of this. So how it is working. So in the answer, it is a normal what? We have a fields here. What is that? ID, answer name and posted by. Okay. So you can just observe here. ID, answer name, posted by. Only 3 fields are there. We define only 3 fields. Just check out, people. We define only 3 fields. ID, answer name and posted by. Hmm? ID, answer name and posted by. But these 2 fields are extra. Where? It is defined in the, where it is defined? In the entity reference. So we have an object of answer. Where? In the question class. We have an object of answers in a question class. So what is this? This is the reason for using one-to-many mapping. So what we have here? List reference of what? Of answer. List reference of answer, and that is the reason for using one-to-many mapping. So here we have a join column. So what is this? A foreign key field which will be created in the answer field. Then order column, name equals type. So you can just look here, type you're displaying 0 and 1. The first answer, second answer, like that goes on. So one-to-many is basically the type of relationship. One question might have many answers. So what do you understand by the word cascade? What do you understand by the word cascade? Cascade. When there are 2 tables, I try to delete a record in one table. Will it delete? I have a relationship between 2 tables. and there are related records in two tables. If I try to delete a record, will the, now just look here, consider this only. Okay, there is a two tables, answer and question. If I just try to delete this, will it delete? No, it will not be deleted. Why? Because there is a related record in another table. So how to enable it? By the command cascade all. So there are two types. One is cascade all, and there is cascade update, and there is cascade delete. When I just say cascade delete, what happens? If I delete a record in one table, it will delete also record in another table. If I just say cascade all means deletion and updation, both will happen. There are three options: cascade update, cascade delete, and cascade all. So when we are using, when you have a relationship, so now by the default, when you create a relationship between two tables, can we delete the records? No. When you have two tables, and if both the tables are having related records, can we delete the records? No, we cannot delete the records. Why? That's a by default. But still, if you want to delete a record, now just look here. Just understand. I have a course called as IS, Information Science, and if I try to delete a record, delete that course, can you delete that? No. Why? Because there are 100 students in that. That's the reason. But think that you want to delete the students also, then we need to make it as cascade delete. We can make it as cascade delete. Okay, so like that. So that's why we are using this. So this is what called as one to many. Hmm? So this we have to give. Then the normal classes. So look in the second class. We don't have anything. A normal this thing. Got it? So that's how it works. Hmm? So this is easy. When compared to XML mapping, na, this will be easy. Annotations will be easy. Hmm? Just a minute. Okay. So hope you're getting the idea of how we are using Hibernate. Again, in the same framework, we'll be using again Hibernate. Okay. And with the less code again, the coding will be reduced. No need of creating configuration and all those things. So other mappings I'll just show in the Spring itself. So now we look into the Hibernate query language. So look into the Hibernate query language. So other mappings will implement that in the Spring. So I showed you one to many. Similarly with annotations, we can implement one to one, all those things. So next we'll see this SQL, Hibernate query language. So it's an object-oriented query language. SQL is a object-oriented query language. What is SQL? It's a relational query language or RDBMS. It's an RDBMS or it's a relational query language. SQL. Select start from customer. What you wrote in JDBC. What you work in Oracle, MySQL. It is a SQL or RDBMS query language. But Hibernate is an object-oriented query language similar to SQL. Instead of operating on tables and columns, SQL works with a persistent object and their properties. So why is it object oriented? When I just say select, here also it will be similar only. When I just say select start from customer. What is customer here? Class. Customer is the class, not the table. In SQL, customer is the table. So select first name, last name from customer. What is first name, last name? Okay. So instead of operating on tables and columns, SQL works with the persistent objects and their properties. SQL queries are translated by Hibernate into conventional SQL queries, which in turn perform actions on database. Again, this is built on SQL only. Okay. So internally, all these queries will be converted into SQL and then gets executed. So we can also use SQL statement also. We can also use SQL statements. So when to use SQL? Whenever possible to avoid database portability, as well and to take advantage of Hibernate SQL generation and tracking strategies, you need to use SQL. What is database portability? The thing that today your project is using SQL. Strategies. You know that, na? The tables will be automatically created. Then caching is there. For that reason, we need to use SQL. So these are the advantages of SQL. Database independent, supports polymorphic queries, and easy to learn for Java programmer. Is it not why? Because it is written in the form of what? The programming. So we are dealing with the properties and methods. So we can write the polymorphic queries. We are writing, it supports the polymorphic queries. So what is polymorphic? Polymorphism. What is polymorphism? What are you watching? Give me. So what is polymorphism, people? Overriding and is it not? So when there are multiple queries, sorry, when there are multiple classes, so we can write the queries which will map to the multiple classes. So that is what called as polymorphism. Hmm? Yes. So this already I used. If you want to write a query, you need to create an object of query. The first program only I showed you, right? Query. If you see in the first program, whatever we did, we have implemented the query interface. I'm just talking about this. Correct? We have created an object of a query of type student. Hmm? Then we are executing it. So this is an HQL only. The first program what we did now, HQL only. Hmm? So here we are specifying from student and name of the class. So query objects use SQL or Hibernate query language to retrieve data from the database and create objects. So if you want to retrieve the data from the database, then we should be using SQL. A query instance is used to bind query parameters, limit the number of results driven by the query, and finally to execute the query. We can also pass parameters to the query object. I'm going to say I want to display students from here. Then I can pass the parameter. Okay, I want to display the students from Bangalore. So I can pass the parameters. So with the help of query instance, we can bind the query parameters, limit the number of results. If there are millions of records, I can only display first 100 employees or students, and finally to execute the query. So these are the various methods. Okay. So if you want to create an object of a query, then it will be writing that method. Create query method. Okay. The object of a query can be obtained by calling create query method of a session interface. Execute update. To perform updations or deletions. To perform updations or deletions, we'll be using this list. Return the result of the relation as a list. So instead of list, what we used in JDBC? Result set. In JDBC, we use result set. We are using list. Yeah, set first result. Specify the row number retrieved. If there are 100 records, I want to fetch the records from the 50th row. So I can specify that. Set first result from the 50. Similarly, set max result. If there are 100, I want to display only 10 records. So that's set parameter. Just now I showed you, right? It is equivalent to what? Set parameter. It sets the value to the JDBC style or query parameters. So how did we do that? Query parameters using prepared statement. How did we pass parameters to the query? Using prepared state. So you can set a through position or through a name of the property. Yes. So from clause. So it's not mandatory to specify the select statement, select keyword. Simply you can just say from employee. Okay. So query of the query, what it does, people, we display all the records from the employee table. This is the command to retrieve the records and store it in results of type list. Hmm? So note of writing select start from. So you can use the alias name with the as clause. You can use the alias the as clause. So we can also use the select statement also, people. So if you want to display all the fields, you can just about if you want to display specific fields, I want to display only what? First name. Then I will use select first name from employee. Then it is same only. Okay. So here, what is first name? Property. It is not fetching referring to the table field. It's a property. Similarly, we can also specify the where clause. So if you know SQL, it's really easy to understand. But only thing we are writing to what? We are querying Pojo class. We are querying Pojo class. Order by, all those things are there. We can also use group by. Okay. Yeah. So when you find this colon employee ID. So in the in JDBC we used to give what? Symbol. Symbol. So colon and name of the property. So for that property, you're passing the value. Query dot set parameter So employee ID, what you are passing? 10. So what does it mean? From employee, I want to display the employee ID with the value of 10. What is this query? To display the record or employee details whose employee ID is 10. So that is done with the help of set parameter. So why we use this? To defend against SQL injection. Is it not? So prepared statement also used for what? To defend against SQL injection. What is SQL injection? What is SQL injection? If you're using normal statement object, so hackers will just try to insert their own value for this, where ID equals, they can insert their own value and they can modify. SQL injection is nothing but what? Hackers trying to send out their own data. So for that reason, we'll be using prepared statements or set parameters. Yes. So now this is an example of the update. You can just look at it, but instead of retrieving to the list, where is it? Query dot execute update. Query dot execute update. Okay. So in the previous case, just look here. Query dot lists. But when you're performing DML operations, it will be query dot execute update. Like this. Similarly for delete also. Delete from employee. We are passing the parameter. Here we just say query dot execute update. So we know that when you are performing DML operation, it is always in the what? Integer. When you perform DML operation, it will return what? Integer or number. When you perform DML operation, it will return a this is all the results. When you perform DML operation, it will return integers. What is it? 1 row reflected, 2 rows deleted, 5 rows updated. So 5 is what? Integer. So that is why we are returning it to what? An integer variable in both the cases. Okay. But whereas you will see here, in terms of select statements, it is returning it as a list. Similarly, we can also do insert. But in a web application, how we are inserting? We're inserting directly, we can do the node of SQL, is it not? Already what we have done previously, what is it? Directly we can take the data from the form and we can insert using the save method or a persist method of a session. Still, here also we can use the aggregate methods. So which are the aggregate methods? Max, min, count, sum. These are all aggregate methods. Okay. Last. The next is criteria queries. Previously we just saw a query object. The next is criteria. So it's a use the brand box. So the previous case is alright. Brand employee equals 100. Brand salary is greater than 10,000. Instead of that, we can specify the criteria with the criteria object itself. And those are called as criteria queries. Those are called as criteria queries. Hibernate provides alternate ways of manipulating objects and insert data available in RDBMS tables. It's an alternate way to specify the criteria. So normally how do you specify the criteria? Using the value class and with the help of different operators. It might be logical operators or relational operators. Greater than and operator, more operator, in operator, between. So all used for what? Criteria. So normally let's start from customer. What does it do? It will fetch all the records. Salary greater than 10,000, all those things. Then this is employees who are working in CS department like that. So this is what called as criteria. So previous case we saw that we can do it with the help of var class. Instead of that, there is an alternate way by using Hibernate criteria. Okay. So we have a criteria API for that. We have a criteria API. We have to build a criteria query object grammatically. Instead of writing the SQL statement, instead of that, we write the programs. Means with the help of the small code. So you can apply filtration rules and logical condition. That's what greater than equals, then and operator, or operator, in operator, between operator. Now those are used for filtrations, for filtering the data. So this Hibernate session interface provides create criteria method which can be used to create a criteria object. So this will return the instance of the persistent object class, the criteria query. You can just see here. So criteria query is what means will simply return every object that corresponds to the employee class. Same as you previously you did. What is that? Using the query objects. Here also we are using it to return the records. So what is the output of this people? Equivalent to query. No, just consider instead of criteria, think that it is a query on. So what does this will return? This is equivalent to from employee. This is equivalent to from employee or select star from employee. This is equivalent to select star from employee. So what this will return? All the records from employee table or employee class. This will return all the records from employee table. Just look here. In the previous case, what we used in query object. Now just look here. We did the same thing previously also. Don't get confused here. Yeah. We wrote what? From employee. Okay. And we are creating a query object. Forget about the criteria. From employee. But here, instead of query object, I'm using what? Criteria object. So session.create criteria employee class. So what is the output of results? It will have all the employees. It will have all the employees here. Okay. Now to this query, you are supposed to add criteria. Okay. So you can see some operators. You can use this add method available for the criteria object to add restrictions for it. Okay. So what is this? Equal. Greater than. Legitimate. Greater than. Like. Correct. Now we are filtering. In the previous slide, what was happening? Fetch all the records using the criteria object. Now we are adding filtrations. We are adding filtrations. How? We add method restrictions dot equal. Add restrictions dot greater than. Add restrictions dot like. What is like operator? It will display the first name whose name starts with R. Okay, R percentage whose name starts with R. Salary greater than 2000. Salary between 1000 to 2000. Salary equals to 2000. Okay, this is same as what? That salary equals to 2000. The criteria object. Is that what? Criteria. This is alternate way to specify the filtration. The HTML. We can also do this what? As we did in the previous. Using what? The plain HTML. Let's specify the value. Specify the value. Okay. Because instead of that, anyone use this one? This one. Criteria. Okay. So this is writing the code in the form of what? Programming. That's it. Okay, so I need half an hour for explaining the practical. We'll do it after the tea break. So everyone join at 11:30. Okay.